everybody. It's time for Beyond the Steps. Thank you so much for joining us this Friday. We are super excited to bring you another amazing show with another amazing guest. If you are a first time viewer or a returning viewer, you already know this that we are a weekly video podcast that talks about everything performance athletics, including gender equity, racism, sex abuse and prevention, nutrition, psychology, and of course, dance, medicine, and science. We are in our fourth season, about to wrap up our fourth season, head into our fifth season, and it amazes me that we have not had this amazing woman on the show with us before. We are talking to Casey Novelet about how we can balance with underlines, lots of exclamation points, training for the future with studio obligations to avoid burnout. As we all know, if we are in a studio space, these studio obligations are becoming greater and greater, and they're growing and they're growing, and there are more hours and more hours and more hours. And we have to figure out how we balance what we want to do in the future with what we have to do right now in our studio spaces. So this is such a timely topic as we head towards the end of the year and summer intensive time is coming. Convention time is coming up in the fall. Rest and recovery time could be coming, if we actually let it come, any of that stuff. So we are super excited to have this conversation that we have never had before. And I don't want to delay it any longer. So Bree, would you like to introduce Casey?
Yes, our friend Casey's here. She is the founder of Commercial Dance Intensive, which is a training program designed to help dancers bridge the gap from their technical training to the business side of the commercial dance industry. Casey's performed at large venues in New York City, DC, Japan, Taiwan, and Venezuela, as well as TV appearances with Disney, Universal, and NBA's Atlanta Hawks dance team. Casey has produced over 8 music videos and travels with Royal Caribbean on their audition tour, founding in-house productions in 2001 and CDI in 2014. Casey's been instrumental in the development of countless professional dancers through her innovative vision for education. And I have to say, we've been a long time partner of CDI, and Paula have been partners together. So we're super excited and proud to have our friend here with us. Casey, how are you?
Amazing. I'm really glad to be here and glad to get to chat about this. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, we're excited. So I want you to tell everybody about CDI and what was the catalyst that led you? Everybody has that moment of like their why. Why did you create CDI, and what led you to do the work that is so much needed in this industry?
Yeah, thanks. So my mom's a dance teacher. She had a little studio in a small town growing up, and my brother also dances, my younger brother. Cassidy, he's in Los Angeles. And we started going to New York at age 9. I got an invitation randomly at Duke University to go dance with Jacques D'Amboise at age 9, and kind of pulled my, little family out of our small town. And we ended up spending, 5 weeks in New York, mostly on the 5th story of his brownstone on the Upper West Side, training with ABT, and, just like mind-blowing, super grateful experiences. And so what my mom would do is after the summer was over, she would invite teachers down to her studio that we had connected with in the summer. And this wasn't a thing, in the 90s, right. Early 2000s, people weren't doing it. So once I went to college, I started master teaching. I went to school at New World School of the Arts in Miami, and I was, kind of new to Florida. And a lot of the studios would say, hey, I know you teach jazz and hip hop. Do you know a good tap teacher? Do you know a good ballet teacher? And I, of course, had been working. So I knew 5 good ballet teachers and 5 good tap teachers. And so I started in-house productions in 2001. And this kind of goes with, I've really been thinking about the topic today. And our mission statement in 2001, and now it's CDI on location. So in-house productions just became our in-studio arm, which is now CDI on location, was that no dancer should be limited in their dance education based on financial status or location. Every dancer deserves to train with those who are top in their field. And, what has happened since then, because we were like the second in-studio convention company where people were saying like, no one's going to invite you in because, Barb's School of Dance is Barb and it's only going to be Barb. And, this is not a thing. So I'm really so excited at, the convention circuit, because it's kind of literally just fostered this mission and this vision that I had. Not that it was me, but it's nice to see,
I mean, you led
all
the way.
These years, like 25 years later, that is the norm. And that if you live in Des Moines, you live in Little Rock, you live in Detroit, you don't have to go to New York and LA like we had to do. Or, you can have an in-studio workshop from a personal connection, but you have access to so many incredible professionals in your hometown. So no matter what your family's budget is, you do have access to those resources. So as we go into talking about convention, like I am super happy that that sort of is now the norm, so that, you know, kids are really getting exposed to a lot of things. And then my brother's working in LA, I'm working. And in 2014, I was at University of North Carolina School of the Arts teaching kind of like a jazz track in their summer. And I said, I think we should do a commercial track. Like, this is where the industry is headed. You know, these kids they can dance, but they don't know how to work. They don't know how to do social media. And this is like 2014, so still kind of new as to that being your full portfolio. They don't know how to do taxes. They don't know how to contact an agent. They don't know what to wear for some of their auditions, which I failed miserably at many times along the way, you know. And I know there are jobs I didn't get just because I didn't have the right outfit on, you know, or I didn't, you know, come prepared for whatever it was. And so my whole sort of in-house productions team got together and we're like, you know, let's create a program that bridges that gap, so that if you live in Roxborough, North Carolina, like we did, you have the same chance of making it as someone who's training at the BDC, you know, semester, just because can we do that? And so that first year they said, School of the Arts said, okay, well, we're not sure if this is the way that we're going to go, but we'll let you try it. You know, let's see how it goes. We will give you 35 spots. If you can fill those 35 spots, we'll, you know, talk about next year growing it. So the first year we had 35 dancers and 140 on the wait list.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And so for me, I'm like, there is a need, you know, kids want this, you know, they're training. So CDI was born out of that. And, you know, we're just constantly, because most, you know, Sissa, who works with Apollo a lot, I mean, our dancers are working, you know, our teachers are working. And so I get a call all the time. It's like, oh my gosh, I just went to this audition. It was completely different than what we're telling the kids. Like, the industry is changing. So like our next intensive, we're switching it up based on literally what our, you know, teachers are experiencing in real time. And, you know, Sissa will tell you, if you're non-union, how to get into an audition in New York, and you have to show up at 5 o'clock and handwrite your name on a piece of legal pad paper that's scotch taped to a door. Like, who is telling you that? You just like move to New York with your Lulu crossbody, and you're like, I'm gonna do this. I got my Ducas. I'm gonna do it. And then it's like, oh, I don't even know what to do. So our mission has always been
to walk and write. I don't have my pen to walk and write on the legal pen.
I don't even have a pen. Step one, go to New York, put a pin in your crossbody.
Put a pin in your bag and look for legal pads attached.
I love it. I mean, you already know the work that you guys do is just so incredible and so much needed for the young dancers in this industry. And I think thank you for paving the way for what was to come. And I mean, thank goodness it's more mainstream now, but I love the attention to detail that you all put on, you know, into it, and knowing that you're evolving it constantly because the industry is evolving constantly. That is such a testament to who you guys are, because we know this, and I'm not going to get on my soapbox too much, but dance is very based in tradition, whether we know it's right or not. And I love that you all are always, you know, updating the database, so to speak. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. And we just want to give everybody the best chance, you know, and a lot of what we say is that you don't know why you got cut, you know, and we do a, you know, Surviving the Nose seminar with GM Mongel. And it's basically like, you can't beat yourself up, you know, and if we can maybe do 4 steps ahead of how you walked in that audition, just your headshot stapled right, you know, just things like that. Whereas you've literally given yourself the best chance possible. And then if it's not you, it wasn't because of anything that you did.
Absolutely.
Like, it was because of something out of your control. But we want to get you to that point so that you're on the level playing field. And just quick anecdote that my dad is a dentist, not dancer. And he wants his own podcast, by the way. So he will come on the show. Let me tell you, he thinks he's like, you know, he's like the dance dad. He loves his role. He has his legal pad with all of his notes. And every time he talks to our parents, he's like, well, I have some new material because I feel like there's going to be some alumni parents here. So I just want to make sure that we're getting all the things.
Let's get him on the show.
Literally, he loves it.
Let's do it.
But something that he says is that, you know, if you're civilian, college, you graduate and you go into the working world, you're only up against entry-level you're only up against entry-level students. You know, you're all on the same playing field, and you're not expected to know the job. you're going to be trained for whatever job you're being hired for. You're not up against CEOs. You're not expected to know how to do the job that you're being hired for. And so when he talks to the parents, he's like, your dancers are up against CEOs. They're up against their idols. They're up against their, people that they stalk on TikTok. And no one's going to say, oh, we'll teach you how to tap. We'll teach you how to sing. We'll go buy you the shoes you need. And he's like, so for dancers, you have to graduate either high school, college, wherever you're going, and know everything. And you're going to turn beside you and you're up against my brother, who's been in the industry for 20 years up for the same job,
Yeah.
And so I think that's always something good for civilian parents to kind of get in your head is, your kids really have to do everything.
Right. That is such a good point. And I never thought about it like that, but that's true. You're
Look at Dad. Dad coming in hot.
Already dropping gems. Coming in hot.
I'll get a copy of his legal pad. He writes everything down. So.
Coming in hot. So when we started discussing this topic in preparation for the show, you mentioned declines in attendance in summer intensives. Why do you think enrollment in this type of intensive has declined recently?
For me, I've been kind of trying to analyze this, and I'm friends with a lot of people who have these, smaller, more intensive summer programs. And I feel like for ballet dancers, the standard is to go to a summer program because they're not doing so many competitions. They might do YGP or they'll have Nutcracker and a spring show, but they're not in an every weekend situation where they're traveling all the time. And I feel like heavy ballet studios support the summer program because it makes their studio look good and their kids come back even better because they're training in New York or LA or Joffrey, So I feel like the norm for that either heavily contemporary dancer or heavily ballet dancer that is not competing 10 weekends out of the year is to go do something in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
What we're finding with the competition dancers is they're just burned out. They're staying, they just are competing every weekend. And when it comes to summer or even winter, there's not much left. There's not much left financially. There's not much left energy. Like we've had kids cancel even just our winter, which happens between Christmas and New Year's, because that's like a little sweet spot where they don't really have studio obligations. And I mean, we've had kids cancel 2 weeks before and the parents are like, they're just exhausted. Like we have been in choreography and, and those type of things, which, for me, I'm like, is there a balance? Like the word is balance. Like I am pro competition. I am pro convention, like all of the bonuses that come with that.
Yeah.
But I think that the biggest issue or the biggest thing that the kids are missing out on is the personal connection with faculty. Because in a convention setting, you're getting, tons of choreography. You're picking up, we all know the advantages to sort of that scenario, competition as well. But in the summer, no matter what you're doing, whether it's a week, whether it's 2 weeks, you are making a personal connection with that faculty who you are going to need later to make a phone call for you or to recommend you either for college or for jobs. And even if you're in some of these like, protege, assistant sort of roles, you're getting to be on stage, which I think is high pressure, amazing. Like that is something that is really, really hard to do, but I don't feel like in most scenarios, they are making the personal connection with the teacher that they are assisting.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, the other issue, tacking on to the theory of it all, right, is that some studio programs start really early. So they go to nationals, and these nationals are not till the end of June through mid-July is typically when those nationals are. And then they start their new season choreography and they have to be there for that. And then a lot of studios have started creating their own intensives that they require their kids to go to in the summer to bridge the gap in revenue, because studio revenue typically historically goes down in the summer. And so those studios don't want those kids going to other programs. They want them putting that money, so they make it mandatory for the parents to spend, $300, $400, $500 on that intensive at the studio, so they get that revenue. But the big problem is exactly what you said, is that they're missing out on, if you're a studio that's worth a darn and you know who you are and you have a great curriculum and you have a great program, you should take comfort in knowing who you are and letting your students go and absorb other perspectives from other professionals in the industry that have a different way of looking at things. It's only going to make your students in your program better if you're doing your job, right? So being afraid to let them go out and do those things or excusing them to do all those things is tough. So how do you get the parents, the parents of these students, the people who are looking to the studio directors for guidance on what do I do now? Like, I don't know anything. I don't know dance from a hole in the wall. I played soccer or I didn't do any of this. And I'm just trying to give my daughter the best and I trust you. How do you get the parents and the studio directors to see the value of something like CDI and going outside of their local space?
So I was thinking about this when we started, chatting about this topic. And I think the perception from the parents is that all they need for a career in dance or to be on a college dance team or to go to a dance college, a heavily coveted small program, is to do convention and competition all year. And then they got to assist all these really famous people and that's all you need. So I can remember a couple years ago, I saw a dancer online and I was like, oh, she would be great for CDI. And then I noticed in one of her videos that she was assisting one of my faculty, multiple cities, at one of the big, tracks. And so I wrote that faculty member and said, hey, like, I really like this dancer. Like, how is she as a person? Like, is she a hard worker? And she was like, actually, I don't really ever talk to her. Like, she's a really good assistant, like she, comes in my room on time. She knows my choreography. She's very technically sound. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to work with her for 2 weeks. Does she want to be a dancer? And she just, there's not that personal connection. And when you get in the business on your resume, you're going to put who you trained with. And there are so many rooms that I look at, whether I'm with Royal Caribbean or doing, music video auditions. And it's like, if I see someone that I know on that resume, I'm going to text them and say, hey, do you know? And you can't put anyone on there that doesn't know who you are, And so to be able to make those connections are really important, whether it's a week or 2 weeks in the summer. And also I feel like something that we hear a lot is that we tend to get, like, we get some superstar dancers, but we also get that like second level of dancer who is not the contemporary queen, who doesn't win overall every time, who doesn't win the titles, who comes to CDI and gets to reinvent themselves. I think that's the bonus with going away in the summer is that you're not with your studio, and we all sort of need a break. We know girls are mean, sometimes there's just studio dynamics and you get sort of pigeonholed, or you're always in the second line, or, you don't know, you think you want to be a rockette, but like probably not because you're not the best one at the studio. And then they come to any summer program, not even just CDI, and they get to be somebody complete. No one knows anyone at their studio, so they can be who they want. And we get emails from studio owners. It's like, I don't know what you did, but this kid just like shaved the side of her head. Now she goes by a short name and she came back like ready to go, like confident. She already picked out her music for her solo. So I think even as adults, we just need a break from the norm every now and then. And I think that, it's really important that in a summer program, even though it's short or, 4 weeks, whatever you go to, you just get to be whoever your true self is without having all of the norm around you, and you may just discover that you're really good at this because you felt comfortable to try it because you were in front of all new people, You're
getting the creative juices flowing and you have a little bit of freedom to experiment and try things that you've never tried. And I think sometimes those underdogs or those tier 2 performers are the most lethal because they have, you give them the right opportunity and they want it so bad and they're so hungry that they will soar, with the right lift there. So I I'm all about the underdog, all about that. That's fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, Casey.
Oh, not, I just, and I think what's happening is that I am afraid that these kids are going to get to their senior year of high school, and they've just been, on the cog, they've just been on it, compete, and their years are all the same. There's been no stop, reset. What do I want to do? And I feel like these summer programs really are a chance to like, have a breather, but also kind of figure out what you want to do. So before your parents are paying 80 grand for NYU, maybe along the way, when you stop for a second, you realize like, I don't want to be a professional contemporary dancer. You know, I want to move to LA, or I want to do a training program, you know, one of these trade schools that's shorter. I want to have a gap year. I want to do a professional semester, you know. And I think when you don't stop, some of these parents get into this where, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to pay 70 grand for school for my kid to get a dance degree. And maybe that's not perfect for them, but there wasn't a chance to stop and have that conversation because you're just doing it, you know, like, okay,
You're
this is
on
what we do. Everyone's
autopilot.
doing it. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
It's
Sure.
a lot
That
of
makes
money.
sense. Absolutely it is. And it's something you really have to give careful consideration to. It's a big decision. So if you're just joining, I'm Bree with Apollo here with my friend and co-host Melissa McDaniel Grisham. This is Beyond the Steps, the show where we talk about all things related to performance athletes, from racism, gender and equity, sex abuse and prevention, nutrition, psychology, dance, medicine and science, and more. We are chatting with our friend Casey Noblet today of Commercial Dance Intensive about, you know, how can we balance training for the future with current studio obligations to avoid that dreaded burnout that we all see happening with kids starting at about 12 and 13, unfortunately. So we're really excited to have this conversation. We've already had some great tidbits. So go back and watch from the beginning after this is over. But right now, so we kind of just touched on it with the summer stuff, but I can already see a huge challenge and source of tension with this program, with the studio owners who are offering and or requiring more and more, either trying to retain their students or increase their revenue. You know, how do you calm those fears on the studio side? Do you guys work with the studio directors? Do you kind of form partnerships with the studio so that they work around maybe your schedule and allowing their kids to go, to calm those fears a little bit? Like, hey, I'm here to support your program. I'm not here to take kids from you. Right. But like at the end of the day, we want the same thing for these kids. How do you do that?
100%. I think when we come in to do a CDI on location and they see what we do, you know, which is not what they do. It's completely different, you know, because we're really focused on the back end. We're not even, you know, sometimes they'll ask us to do solos for them for the next year. And we're like, hold on, like, let's connect me with your studio owner. That's not what we do, you know, like we would love to continue.
You're missing the point.
You're missing the point, you know, this is not what we're here to do. But I think that, you know, studio owners offering their summer intensives, like let's say they have 75 company members. Of those 75, let's say 10 are the ones that really, even 5, that want to go out and do something, you know. And I think providing a summer intensive within your studio is great, because a lot of those kids don't want to dance professionally. They want to do it for fun. They want to be their best. And if you can bring it to them, which is, you know, what in-house production started as, that's the goal. But let's say those 5, 8, 10 top dancers who are like, I want to do this. Like, this is a great marketing tool for your studio, because my, you know, dancer got accepted to Commercial Dance Intensive, to Pay Summer, to CLI, you know, whatever it is. It's a marketing tool, because now you're seeing that like your dancers aren't only good within your studio, you're able to promote that like they were good enough to get into these, you know, really hard to get into summer programs. And also, I think you are going, for the studio owners, like I said, we're not trying to take all 75. I will probably, like, at your studio, there may be 1, 2 dancers that actually fit sort of what we want. You know, we keep it very small. We only have 40 max this summer, you know, and that's from all over the country. So we don't, you know, we're not going to take all, if we come and do an on location, that's when we can talk, you know, to sort of all of you. But I think if there's a way, if I was, you know, 10th grade and I'm getting burned out and I really want to do something else in the summer, like, have that conversation with your studio owner early. And, you know, when you come back from Christmas or over Christmas break and say, hey, you know, I think it's really important that I do something. And for me, I'm encouraging them to not do the summer intensive of the competition convention that they've been doing the whole year. You know, like, they've had that experience, you know, and I know it's fun, and, you know, you get kind of all the perks, which they love some swag. They love to be up front. I love all of that. But you never quite get out of that circuit of, you know, faculty, and it's your comfort zone. You really are, you know, sort of in your comfort zone. But if there's a way,
it's a whole thing. Like when, like, if you know, our studio is going to nationals with this company this year.
Right.
So we're going to go to like 8 regionals and take all of our kids so they can see us multiple times. And if you got an award in this city, you're not allowed to go to this city because these people need to qualify to get an award. And then the whole nationals, like half the nationals is this one studio that like traveled all around the country in the regionals to get there. It's like, it's insane. And so they spend the whole season with this, you know, the same faculty. Right. With the goal of what?
Yeah.
Like, what is the goal?
Right.
And so like winning, it's great. It's everybody wants to win. Like, you're lying if you say you don't want to win these things. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But where's the line? Right. Like, where's the line? Yeah.
And I think that what the parents need to understand is there's, you know, over 150 competition companies now. There were 4, I think, when we were all coming up. Like, there were, you know, there was none. There was so if you won. Like, there was only 4 really circuits, and now it's awesome to win, and that is an amazing accomplishment. That means that you have worked really hard. But just remember that the national winner of the, you know, contemporary junior solo this weekend, there are 149 other national junior solo winners, you know. And for the parents, I just want to say that is an amazing accomplishment, but it is not the end game. Like, that alone is not the path to your kid being a professional dancer. You know, that shows that they can work under pressure, that they're incredible performers, that they put in the work as technicians. But now what is what do you add to that so that they can actually like bridge that gap to college and, you know, the professional world, because that can't be it. And so, you know, if a student, you know, has that, you need to communicate with your studio owner and say, hey, I really think I want to do this. I think it's good for me. You know, I think, this is the program that I'm interested in. Please look at it and see if you know any of these faculty, or if you think that it's good. Because in the end, the studio owner is your mentor. You know, they're your second mom. They're the ones who, you know, want the best for you. So don't discount them in the conversation. Include them in the conversation, or say, I want to do something. Can you help me find something?
Exactly. And the relationships are very personal, and we can get very attached. And from a director's standpoint, I will say it's a very different conversation when a student comes to me and says, you know, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'll be back next year. Yeah. I really want to do this because of X, Y, Z. Like, and I talked a little bit about this on a different podcast interview I just did. Like, when I first started my company, I had to hold very tight to my vision for what I wanted for that company, because we were essentially building a brand or something out of nothing that didn't exist. And we had to have an identity, and you have to stick really tight to that. And there were no exceptions, and everybody's got to do this. And then slowly, as the program started to go and we stood on our own 2 feet, you start realizing there's these handful of students that just want more. They want more. And it's not a slight on what you're providing them at the studio. They love what you're providing at the studio, but they want more. And you can't make all 70, 80, 90 kids do more. You can allow 5 to do more. And so knowing who those kids are is really important as a director too, and being able to be proactive. And it doesn't have to mean that they're going to leave you. It just means that when they have the opportunity to do something else, allow them to, so they don't feel resentful and they don't feel like they have to make a choice.
And you're doing your job. Like, if you have dancers that cannot get enough of this, that means that you are doing your job. You know, like you are creating this love of dance that like they can't get enough. Like, those are the kids that you just think someone is listening, you know, when everyone else is on their phone and tuned out. It's the kid who comes 30 minutes early, who asked to teach the little kids classes, who, you know, it's that kid who just wants to do all the things. And rather than feeling like, you know, they're going to go off and get stolen, like, they don't want that. They just want more, you know? And I think asking the question, which I think, like you said, having that communication, that way your studio owner doesn't see like, oh, I didn't realize you were going to a summer program and now it's a thing. Or have the conversation, where do you think I should go? Can we together look at a couple options? Because I would love to do more hip hop this summer. Or I think I might want to work for theme parks in Disney. Can we find somewhere that is specific to that? Or I want to do college dance team, which, you know, as we know, is a whole nother thing now. And you can't start that in 11th grade anymore. You have to start that a lot earlier, and the studios aren't providing.
We just had a conversation about this.
Just had this conversation.
It's a whole nother thing, but that is separate training that the studios are probably not providing. I mean, now there's studios popping up that I'm sure you talked about that just do dance team, you know? And so how do we, I love the idea of just having the conversation with your director and saying like, what do you think? This is kind of what I want to do. And we try to have studio owner resources, a lot of chats. We, like I said, when we're on location, I've been going to a lot of conventions, talking with, educators and just saying like, let me empower you to help them take the next step. Because a lot of them, and they just never danced professionally. They went straight from training to studio life, which is great. They're amazing teachers, but they don't, I mean, how could they? How could you even, I don't even know what's going on in the industry like today, because it might be different than 2 weeks ago. And so they only know what they know. And just having like the strength to say like, what, I don't know how to help you, get to, if you really want to dance for Tokyo Disney, I don't know how to do that, but let's find somewhere that will help you get to it. Because then the studio can say, oh, we have alumni that are dancing in Tokyo, that are on the NBA, that are, dancing on Broadway. And then all of a sudden you have this incredible marketing that's like, wow, their studio, because they get credit. In the end, the studio gets credit. Even if the studio didn't, wasn't part of their 2-week revelation in the summer, it's your dancer, and we want to support you. Or, the last thing we want to do is take away from that. Like, we want to support you, the studio owner, because it's a village. It's the dancer, the studio owner, the parent, and then any, sort of guests that come into your life. But that, trifecta is what makes or breaks a dancer if they want to make a career of it. So the more that we can, support the studio owners, like that's the goal, because you have them the whole year. We only get them for 13 days.
Right. Absolutely. The burnout these students are facing is real, and it's impacting them physically and mentally. What are some of the signs that you're seeing when kids are coming to you? I know you talked about cancellations, but even being on site, what are some of the signs you're seeing in dancers of burnout? And is it impacting their ability to successfully transition to that professional world?
Yeah. So we started sort of during COVID, because we ran all the way through COVID. How, I don't know, but like we were still doing it overnights with masks and everything. But we started the first night they're there with a goal session. And so we break up into small groups and each person gets to talk. And 90% of the dancers have a full meltdown, like crying. Like, it is like someone just said, how are you doing? And what do you want for your goals? And it is like everything from their studio, everything from school, everything from home. It's like, whoa, like literally I had to start bringing a mental health specialist the next year, because I was like, my faculty is not even equipped for what these kids are going through. And, at first we thought it was just COVID, but it is every year since then. We're way past COVID now, and the stress of that. And like that goal session, it is like we come, together as a faculty, because at CDI, like your 13 days are tailored to you. So whatever you said in that goal session follows you for the 13 days, depending on what you want. And so we all get together as a faculty, and we're all just like the pain that we feel, because these kids are struggling. And I mean, they're putting a good face on, like they do the thing. And then as soon as someone stops and they're in a position where they don't know anyone in the room, and no one can say, well, that's not how it happened, or she didn't say that, or, you didn't come. It is like everything comes out. And I think that's when we started, like I said, bringing in a mental health professional, because we're like, we don't even know we want to help these kids, because clearly the mental health aspect is not being fulfilled, because when you're exhausted, everything is overwhelming. Right. And we get them at the end of July. They've like just finished all the madness. And for us, it's almost just like we get emotional about it, because we're like, dance should be fun. Like, this should be something that gets you out of bed. This should be something that like you watch on TV, and that you listen to music and you're choreographing in your head. Like, we all do this because it brings joy to our life. And the sadness that you're feeling, or the stress, is not productive, and you're going to quit, like in the end, you're just going to quit with things that probably could have been fixed if we had just intervened a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And do you think that, the quitting, do you think we lose a lot of good professional dancers, or people who could be transitioning into the professional space, or even into the, long-term teaching space, because of that burnout? Like, students decide, this is just going to be a hobby because this is just too much.
Right. 100%. And I think the defeat aspect of it, like if you're not winning, you're being told that like I mean, there's no way you can be a professional dancer. Like you win third place every time, or you don't even, do whatever. And I'll make a comparison because so my daughter's a gymnast, not a dancer. And I had to go sit in the gymnastics parent seminar, 2 years ago. And I'm like, I usually lead these. Like, I don't really like sit in the audience.
Weird. It's so
Right.
weird.
It was so weird. And my mind was blown because gymnastics is so different than dance. And, they were saying things like, you need to contact these coaches like once a week and like update them on what you're doing. And I was like, if these dancers were emailing me once a week with their solo videos, no, ma'am, Pam. I was like, I would tell her like, do not contact them. They are busy. Like, stop, And so like, I didn't know what I didn't know. And then she got into this college process and like her goals were like top schools, like from the beginning. And in our head, we were like, you're going to do whatever. Like, if you want this, we're going to make this happen. Like, you are a hard worker. She's a beautiful technician, but she's not winning overalls every competition. She's falling off the beam. She has all these things. And so for us, once we got into this process and sat with the coaches, I was like, why Ava Marie? Like, why my kid? She's not the win. She's not going to Nastia. She's not doing these things. And they're like, it's not about that. They're like, there are kids who do the same routine every year. So, what we see in her is a beautiful technician. She's trying skills that she shouldn't even be trying as a sophomore because, these are college level skills. She's upping her game every year. She's kind to other people. We're watching her when she messes up. And I was like, oh, it's about all the other stuff, like when you're on a college team, it's about being a good teammate. It's about being a good technician. It's about wanting to grow. And even, me who's in this world of dance and competition, all of a sudden was like, oh, they're not looking for the winner. I mean, yes, of course there's elite gymnasts and of course we want these, but she got 11 offers, from like her top schools, and all of them said it was holistically all the things. And so translating that to dance, it's the same thing. If I'm hiring you for Royal Caribbean, I want to know how you are as a person. Like, you need to be a good dancer. But then if someone calls me and is like, girl, she's amazing. She's so kind. She works so hard. She's going to be in there rehearsing 30 minutes early. I'm like, boom, that's the one, and it doesn't have to be the best dancer. So I feel like the kids that are really burnout are those dancers who are not winning every single weekend. And in their mind think, I can't be a professional dancer.
That's right.
And like you said, sometimes that second tier who are not winning every weekend are the hustlers. Those are the kids that are like, they're going to stay in New York and they're going to show you and they're going to do it. And
the grit.
And there's a place for everybody. I think that is what is hard, because it's like, oh, if you go to New York, you have to be Rockette or on Broadway. If you're in LA, you need to be at Millennium on their, YouTube feed. If you're, whatever it is. And there's like 150 other jobs that you can have as a professional dancer. You can stay close to home. You can be in a big city. And I think that is maybe missing in the education portion, is that, you're never going to do an aerial. And I think a lot of those things are coming into the fold now to the kids. But it's hard to cancel that out and say, you're never going to have to do 10 turns. You're never going to have to do fouettes. You're never going to have to do switch second, 9 times out of 10. And you're going to do step touch and you're going to pose and you're going to skip and you're going to get paid a lot of money to do those things.
Right.
And I think if they just knew that not having these things, I'm not talking about college dancing because that's a whole nother trick.
Right.
Madness.
Yeah.
But like, that is a whole nother kip up madness. But I think if they knew, and I think coming to CDI, we kind of give them that opportunity to be like, hey, did you know that you were actually really good at tap? Or did you know that you actually have a decent voice? Or did you know? And it's like, oh, I didn't know that. And then it's like, you can do this. Like, you can do this. And I think I hate that the burnout comes from exhaustion, but it also comes from defeat.
Right.
And I think the constant defeat without an injection of positivity, without a little win, I think any of us would, it's hard to keep that up, and school and friends and boyfriends and, hormones and all the things.
Exactly. And TikTok and all the amazing things that you should be doing. It's so interesting that you said that, because we have a repeat guest, Carlos Suarez Carbello. He has come on, and he's a dancer and a tricker. He's a hip hop, and he was doing a show. Remember this, Bree? Jurassic Park was the show, and he was a dinosaur in the show. But his ability to move and dance and be able to do those tricks got him that job. And it was a long-term job that was sustaining him and his family. And
Yeah.
it's, oh, so I don't have to be a rocket, I can be a dinosaur.
Yes, you can.
You can be a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Those,
Yeah.
though,
You
you
get
never
paid
know.
really well. Yeah.
You get paid really
Really
well
well.
for being
Yeah.
a dinosaur. If you're just now tuning in and you just heard me say a dinosaur, there was
We are
more.
not talking about
We're
dinosaurs.
not talking about dinosaurs. Please go back and watch the beginning of this
Like,
episode.
what did I get into?
See the context of that comment. You can find this full episode from the beginning on YouTube at TP Dance Creations or at Apollo Performance, so you can see how we got there. Please contact somebody, tell them to tune in now. We are dropping gems about being able to balance the future wants and training with the obligations that you have now as a studio in the studio and not burn out. There's still a lot of show left, so please make sure you share and comment. We want to know what you think. Next question. What are 2 to 3 tips? And this is I had to take a breath because this could be a loaded question. What are 2 to 3 tips for achieving this balance between the demands of the competitive program and saving mental space for other training opportunities for your future?
I'm going to go back to communication with your parents, communication with your studio owner, communication with your high school dance teacher. Like, who do you have in your life to help? And I think not enough kids that I see are taking control of their own future, and they're kind of just going on what they see and not really what they want. And so I think just having that to say, like, hey, I want to do this, but I'm really feeling burned out. Like, I love it here, but like, by the end of the season, it's not fun. Like, I really want to do things in the summer, or I want to take a vacation with my family just to like reset and have a life. I want to go to prom. I want to do these things, like, but it's on a competition weekend, or it's this, it's that, like I said, I have a competitive gymnast. So I'm in like mom mode too of, gym commitments and also trying to balance the family and her get committed. So like I am, with the studio owners and CDI director, but I'm also a mom of, who is in the competition circuit in a different way. But I think just saying, like, sitting with yourself as a dancer, even as, a young dancer, and saying, like, what do I want right now? And we've had a lot of dancers that just quit competition altogether just to focus on their career. And I hate that. Like, I don't want that to be it, where I compete or I train for the future. Like, I don't think that those things are, mutually exclusive. I think you can do both. But I think it's just having that conversation, making sure you're at a studio that supports you, but the first step is just having the conversation. And if you have a studio owner who's like, absolutely not, you need to be here all the time. Like, sorry that this is what you want to do. Is there another resource at the studio, a competition director or someone that you can sort of have a first pass at? Because I really think that if you, as a dancer, come to your parent or your studio owner with a plan. So that's what I always tell my kids. They'll say, like, I want to do this, but my mom's absolutely not going to let me. We're at CDI. And I'm like, then you do all the research. How much does it cost to live in New York? How are you going to find a roommate? How are you going to pay for school? Are you going to get a job? How are you going to pay for shoes? How are you going to pay for classes? Like, how much are you going to come home? Who's going to pay for this? And if you can do all the research, your, mentors and your parents are going to be way more open, rather than you being like, I think I want to move to New York when I graduate. Like, that sounds like a really good plan. And it's like, okay, well, what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to find a roommate? Where are you going to live in Harlem what is happening?
Yeah.
But if you've already done the research, it shows me as a parent or a studio director or whatever that, like, I'm not just saying this, like, I've done the research. I've talked to Casey. Like, we are constantly on the phone with parents, all of our faculty. And, if you, like, our alumni is in LA, you call Cassidy, taking you to lunch, helping you because she thinks she wants to move to LA, like, we're that resource of, like, what can we help you put into words so that you can have that conversation with your parents. And it may not go your way, but the best chance you're going to have is to do the research, figure out how this works, look at the competition schedule for next year and say, hey, I have something that I would really like to do on this weekend. It's, for my future. Is there a way in August that we can start planning for March? Because this is really important to me. And it could be a yes or a no, but rather than like, I need more time, like I'm burned out, it's like,
Right.
what's the
I also want to jump in with the caveat, like the other side of this coin, just because I don't want this conversation to lead to a bunch of divas being born at the studio competitive level either, and saying like, I am going to do this now because I want to, and this is what I want for my life. Like it is, you also have to know, like, this is, you signed up for a commitment, right?
100%.
Hopefully the expectations were outlined to you in the beginning of the season when you chose to sign up for it. And so what we're saying is there's a certain element of like, look, like burnout is not a planned thing. Like if you're feeling that, you have to communicate that. How can we get around that? And I also just had this conversation. Pay attention to how your studio director responds to that, because if it is responded with like, I don't care, then, and this is what it is, then, you may need to reevaluate some things for the next year. But also, like, you can't just go in and expect the whole program to shift to accommodate your wants and needs as well. 100%. And so I think there's got to be an expectation of compromise there. And it all stems from, as Casey said, really great open door communication. But I think you have to manage those expectations on both sides. I just want to make sure we're putting that out there.
Right.
Yeah. And as a team member, you have to think about your other team. And so if you just went through 2 weeks of choreography with a guest teacher, and then the beginning of September, you're like, yeah, I'm not going to be here for so-and-so. It's like, well, if we had that conversation before we did all these things, so really look ahead and take other people, into consideration.
And it may, require sacrifice from you too. Like I may really want to be in this piece, but what do you want more? Like you have to pick and choose. Like maybe I'm not at choreography and I'm not in this piece for the season, but I get to go to CDI, right? Like, so you also have to realize that your vision for yourself and where you want your life to go may require some immediate sacrifice that isn't very appealing, but it's the long game. It's the greater good, right? So just making sure we're highlighting that. Yeah.
No, I love that. And I think that's part of being a professional dancer. There's always a sacrifice, there is, can I go to this audition or do I have to go to work today? Like your life as a commercial dancer is always going to be, you're going to have 2 jobs that overlap and you have to choose, like you have to hire your friend or not hire your friend. Like there's always that. And if they can learn that at a young age, that like, if I want this, I think that's a really good point, that like, no, you can't be in this piece because this is going to go, this is our big group piece. And I really like that analysis of it. Like just be willing to, if they're going to give up stuff for you, you also have to give up stuff for them.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely. And I think I definitely want to touch on this before we move on to homework, when talking about these choices and having to make these choices. And do I want to be here for choreography or go to CDI? Or do I want to, do X, Y, and Z? Do I want to cut back in my competition season so that I can make time for X, Y, and Z? There may be consequences, and there may be feelings of letting your teachers or your teammates down. I've decided to go do this thing and not this thing. What advice do you have for young dancers and parents in this area who are having that kind of guilt around
the struggle
decisions?
I mean, I think you have to be a little selfish at some point, not as a whole, but you have to have your 5-year plan worked out. Like if you want to be on a college dance team as a freshman, you're going to have to give up things so that you can make that plan, because your bigger dream is here. And I think, and I'm going to say it, but I feel like of the 50 members on let's say there's 10 seniors, 1 is going to go professional.
Sure.
Maybe 1 goes to college dance team and the other 8 or 9 are just doing it because they really love it, and so at some point you're not going to dance with these people anymore, so how do you support your team but also be a little bit selfish? Because if you wait until you're out of the studio, you have missed so many opportunities, and now it's kind of late because someone in 9th grade said, oh, this is kind of what I want to do, but having that conversation with your parents and saying like, can I take voice lessons on Sunday afternoons because I don't have commitment? Like, is there a way to slowly infiltrate the things that could help? And it doesn't always have to conflict, and again, we don't want to burn out, but sometimes doing something completely different doesn't add to the burnout. It kind of gets you a little more excited because you feel like, oh, this thing is so that, I can work towards my career, or I'm working with an acro coach because I'm really excited about college dance team. you
Well,
know,
and I love what you just said, take the emotion out of it too. And of course, your plan is going to look different because if 9 out of the 10 of you are really okay with the status quo, and that's totally fine.
yeah.
They love this and they're going to graduate and they're going to move on to college and that's the end for them. That's great. But of course, logically, your plan is going to look different if you want to do this for your life. And so allowing yourself that space to go, it is okay that my plan is different and this is why it's different. It takes the emotion and the guilt out of it. And you're able to just say, look, I'm going to fulfill my commitment as much as possible, but I have this different goal that needs my attention. Because if I don't do it for myself now, nobody's going to do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and it was doubly hard for me because I had my mom as my dance teacher. She gave up choreographing on me at like age 13 because I was like, oh, I'm so much better than you. So she literally like gave me my own company to choreograph on, which was my friends. You know, like it was the other 13-year-olds at the studio and 14-year-olds. And so clearly, I'm in Roxborough, North Carolina. I'm the only one who wants to do this. You know, like this is 19. We won't talk about it. The late 1900s.
Late
as the kids
1900s.
say.
Yeah, it was in the late 19, back in the late 1900s is when I started choreographing.
That's hilarious.
But it was so hard because it was like everyone's at the lake instead of at rehearsal because they want to go jet skiing, you know, and I want to be here. This is what I want to do. And so I had my mom as my dance teacher, which is already, you know, hard enough because you're balancing that in the studio. Plus you're working with your friends. Plus none of your friends really want to do this. And so I have been in that position and it's hard, you know, it's not fun, but I look back now and I'm like, man, I do this for a living. Like I get paid to dance. I get paid to teach. In the long run, did I do it perfectly? No. Did people get mad at me and say I was teacher's pet and that I was doing, you know, it was a lot. But in the end, like I got to do what I wanted to do, you know, and, you know, I laugh with my husband because I'm like at 13, at 12, I knew what I wanted to do professional and not, you know, civilians have a lot of times you don't have that path. Mm-hmm. But those of us who do, you know, we've been working for it. And, you know, my brother always says, when he's in our parent seminar, he says, you know, a lot of parents will say, well, what's your fallback? Like, what are you going to fall back on as a, you know, dancer? Like, what if you can't do it? And he's like, your kids have been training twice as long as you trained for your job. And no one said like, oh, I want to be, you know, a journalist. And it's like, well, what's your fallback? No one asked you. And you've never been a journalist. You've never even trained. You took 3 journalism classes in college. And then, you know, they're like, this is what you want to do. And so I think it's so interesting because when we as dancers graduate and move into the world, we are so more prepared for these jobs than our parents were at whatever they ended up doing, you know? And so, you know, giving them that empowerment of like, yeah, you can do this. Let's do this. Like, let's figure this out. Like, let's get the resources. Let's watch the podcast. Let's, you know, learn about as much as we can. Because if you've got your parents behind you being like, dude, you can do this. Like, it's not about winning every weekend. Like, you want to be a dancer? Then let's figure this out. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So great. How can we balance training for the future with current studio obligations to avoid burnout? That has been the question of the day today. We have our friend Casey Noblett with us, founder of Commercial Dance Intensive, CDI, as it's fondly referenced. And this has been just such a great conversation and so much needed as we're really headed into that transitional period of summer and people are thinking about how to extend their training throughout the summer, maybe outside of their studio walls. So really great conversation to go back and have with parents, studio directors, and your dancers and performance athletes in general. I think it's really beneficial. So make sure you go back and watch from the beginning. But right now, Melissa, let's get to homework because Casey, as you may or may not know, we do homework every week on this show. And this is a big segment.
Yes, so this is the first time on here, so you haven't had the homework experience.
Right.
We give our guests homework, one small thing that they can do to make progress in this area or learn more between now and our next show, which is next Friday. So what is your homework for our viewers today, Casey?
I would like our viewers, whether it's parents, dancers, dance studio owners, to research 5 careers in the dance world that you did not previously know about. So seek out 5 performance opportunities, long-term contracts, and figure out where their alumni went to school, who their directors, producers, choreographers are, just to give you a better sense. I think just starting to sort of pull the curtains back of how many opportunities there are in the dance world will A, give you more confidence, and B, give you more initiative to reach out and to do the research and the homework, to figure out how to help your dancers or to help dancers sort of steer in the right direction. So 5 jobs. And so The Business of Show is a great resource. Our faculty member, Adam Cates, wrote the book, The Business of Show. And there are, it's on Amazon, a gazillion pages of jobs. That's a great place to start. And even online, like online dance jobs. But The Business of Show is the book by Adam Cates, which is the textbook for Pace's commercial, Texas State. Like, we use it as our textbook. It's a good, especially for parents, you can read about what, your dancer's going to have to do. But I think just starting to be more curious about what's out there for you as a dancer or for your, dance student or your kid will give you a little more insight into whether this is something that, they can do.
Awesome. Well, you have your homework from Casey, so make sure that you do that. We also have homework. We give you the same homework every week. Hopefully you have done it, and now you can refer someone else to do it. But it's to take the Steps initiative. It is the impetus for Beyond the Steps. It's how we started in COVID. It is a number of free, repeated free, meaning no money, meaning $0.99, $0.00 free, courses that are created by experts in different fields: racism and equity, psychology, nutrition, dance medicine, and science. And they are all there for you to take for free at your own pace. So please, no pressure, but there is pressure to go and do your homework and at least start and make sure that you have it. Casey gave us one of the guest resources, The Business of Show. It's available on Amazon. So picking that up is great. And Casey, how can people get in touch with you and learn more about CDI?
So you can go to our website. Everything's Commercial Dance Intensive. CommercialDanceIntensive.com, Commercial Dance Intensive on Instagram, Commercial Dance Intensive on TikTok, Commercial Dance Intensive on Facebook. We grabbed everything in 2014.
Yes.
So you can always find us there. We are about to close submissions for summer, but we do have a couple spots left before we head to the wait list. And we will be in just outside of Nashville, Tennessee this year, going a little more Midwest/Southeast. 13 days, July 14th through the 27th. We'll be shooting a music video with an artist as usual. We're also going to do a circ workshop. There's a new circ show called Shiners in Nashville. So we're going to get the kids up in the tent to do some circ and then collaborate with that show.
That's awesome.
And then we're also going to do a contemporary dance on camera, in addition to the 750 other things that they are doing. So we are super excited.
Well, that sounds amazing.
Everybody check out commercialdanceintensive.com. There's still time to enroll in what they have going on this summer. It's a fantastic program. Go back and listen to the show from the beginning. I promise it's worth it. Thank you, Casey, for being here.
Thank you.
All of your insight. I'm really, really excited for people to hear this episode. So we really appreciate your time, energy, and talent and sharing that with us today.
And I want to say a big thank you to studio owners. I know we've talked a lot about balance, and I'm sorry if you now have a line out your door during, office hours for dancers to talk to you. But what you are doing is producing some of the best dancers we've ever seen. This is 2024, and the talent that is out there is incredible. So you're doing a lot of things right. So please know that, the takeaway is, how do we support you and make your dancers even better?
Thank you for saying that. And thank you to all of you for watching and staying with us today. We are going to be back next Friday with another episode of Beyond the Steps. We're coming to the end of season 4 here, so make sure you catch up on all your Beyond the Steps. You have your homework from Casey. You have your homework from us. And until next week, we hope you continue your journey beyond the steps. Everybody have a wonderful weekend.
Bye.